Joining me now, Indiana Congressman, House Armed Services Committee member, and Intelligence Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee member, Jim Banks. Congressman, good morning to you. Great to see you. What do you make of the Attorney General's comments, and what will Congress do about it?
Well, he's exactly right. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say it as well as the Attorney General said it. This is about our kids, about their future, whether or not they will have a shot at the American dream. China is the greatest existential threat that America faces today, both economically and militarily. And that's why Kevin McCarthy set up the China Task Force. It's a shame that Democrats won't join Republicans in working together in the House to address this threat. By October 1st, we will publish an exhaustive report to the rest of the Congress, to the American people, with a plan of how Congress can work with this administration to develop a roadmap moving forward to how we can address this threat. But Attorney General Barr is exactly right. That Hoosiers have known this all along, by the way. That's why they overwhelmingly elected Donald Trump in 2016. And they're demanding that their elected officials like myself, their senators, their governors, that we all work together to do something about this, address the China threat, and put America back in the driver's seat.
Tom Bevin.
Congressman, what we're seeing with China has been a long time coming. Ever since Nixon opened it in the 70s. So half a century worth of policy toward China. And they've been sort of lying and cheating and stealing the whole time. It's part of their business model. So where's Congress been, and how did we get to this place over Republican and Democratic administrations over the last few decades?
As I said, President Trump is truly the only president, not just the first, but the only president in my lifetime to identify China as a threat and to pivot away from the position and the failed hope that somehow China would join us as a westernized, democratic form of government that treated its people fairly, that has open markets. We know after decades of this foolish hope of China becoming that's not going to happen. They will cheat, they will steal, they've stolen our jobs, they've given us this coronavirus. It's time to hold them accountable. How do we get to a place in America where our elected officials would do something about it? We're there because the American people are demanding it. And if you go out and look around the country and survey the American people, this isn't Republican or Democrat. There is a bipartisan demand by the American people to hold China accountable, to return our critical supply chain and jobs back home to America instead of leaving them in China, so that we never deal with something like what we've dealt with over the last 3 months. We're there. The American people are demanding it, but it won't be what you find in the halls of Congress. Unbelievable. In Congress, you find only one party focused on this threat. Another party is afraid and unwilling to address it because they're afraid that if they do, they somehow appear like they're siding with President Trump in the process, who's been very strong on this issue.
China unleashed a deadly virus on the world and then lied about it. People realize that. And let's talk about China's influence on U.S. education and institutions in this country. Earlier this month, a Harvard professor was indicted on charges of lying to U.S. officials over ties to a Chinese-run program with goals to strengthen that country's technological development. A number of staff members at U.S. institutions have faced similar accusations. On Sunday Morning Futures back in April, Maria asked Oklahoma Senator Tom Cotton about why the U.S. should reconsider student visas for Chinese nationals. Here's what he said.
Maria, it's a scandal to me that we have trained so many of the Chinese Communist Party's brightest minds to go back to China to compete for our jobs, to take our business, and ultimately to steal our property and design weapons and other devices that can be used against the American people. So I think we need to take a very hard look at the visas that we give to Chinese nationals to come to the United States to study, especially at the postgraduate level in advanced scientific and technological fields. If Chinese students want to come here and study Shakespeare and the Federalist Papers, that's what they need to learn from America. They don't need to learn quantum computing and artificial intelligence from America.
Congressman, what are you doing about that?
Yeah, we have so much more to do. I introduced the Protect Our Universities Act, which would restrict Chinese nationals from participating in DoD-funded or federal government-funded research for national security purposes at our colleges. That led to some language being enacted in last year's National Defense Authorization Act, but there's so much more that we should do. I was astonished as a new member of Congress to find out that we don't track foreign students who are involved in research that is sensitive or classified that occurs on our college campuses. Senator Cotton is exactly right, and that's why President Trump just a few weeks ago sent home thousands of Chinese national students who had ties to the Chinese Communist Party, many of which were involved in this type of espionage or stealing research or secrets on college campuses. We've got to do a whole lot more, I admit that, but Senator Cotton and myself, we're trying to restrict these students from being involved in places where they can steal our most important secrets related to our national security.
Congressman, great to see you. Thank you for being here this morning. Congressman Jim Banks.